يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. It is great to be with you once again. And of course, we will be together for the next hour and a half. Now, today we're going to be looking at human trafficking. I know we have covered this previously with Marcel van der Walt, I think that's what his name is, and this time around we have another one of his colleagues to come in and talk about it. So why is this relevant? Why is this important? Should we care? I think we do. Marina Reyneke is in studio. She is the Operations Manager and she's going to talk to us about why we should care about human trafficking. And later on in the program, we'll be talking to Soraya Patel about life coaching. But right now, Marina Reyneke. Morning, welcome to the program.
Morning, Julie. Thanks for inviting us.
Well, thank you for being here. And you heard my introduction. I'm asking the question, and it's the second or possibly the third time that I am tackling this issue here on ITV, human trafficking. Here's Marina Reyneke sitting across from me in the studio. We are very regular South African people, leading very regular lives. Why should we care about human trafficking? How does it impact on our lives? And what is human trafficking?
Well, first of all, human trafficking is a human rights violation. There are many vulnerable people who get exploited. There's a range of human trafficking means and purposes and types of exploitation. Yeah, and I think it's our duty as humankind to look after those who are vulnerable and care about those who are being abused and exploited.
Why your interest? And of course you brought out the humanitarian aspect to human trafficking. You're talking about those vulnerable people of society. But let me understand why, of all other type of charitable or voluntary or upliftment type of programs that you could have been involved in, you've decided to stand behind no to human trafficking.
Just to give you a little bit of history, I was abused as a child.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
My parents separated and divorced when I was 9 years old. And I feel that I was protected over my high school years. There was no further exploitation. And when I left school, I moved to Johannesburg, got married to my husband, so that's 34 years ago. And over the last 34 years, I've been involved in many different community projects, from working with the community next door to where I live, Windsor East, and adopting a block of flats and working with a woman and giving them hope and mentoring them and taking care of the needs where it's difficult for them to get maybe dental treatment or further education. I've mentored a lot of women like that, and now it's exciting to see the fruit where they have their driver's license and they maybe getting involved in community services themselves and shining, you know, and not oppressed, not quiet and reserved and unsure of themselves. They're really now women who can stand up for their own rights. I've also spent a couple of years nurturing and taking care of a family of refugees from Afghanistan, and they are still in South Africa. It's a family with 4 children. So I've also, you know, I've done a variety of community work. Even
you sound like one of those amazing souls, and I always
No.
wonder, people like you that get involved in community upliftment and outreach, where do you find the capacity to reach out and touch so many lives? And it's really very special people who do things like that. But let me just take you right back. Do you think that your path would have been different had you not been abused as a child? Is it because of the horror of that you're trying to protect as many people as you possibly can and change their conditions?
Yes, yeah. I have a passion for people. I love people. I want to help anyone. And obviously that can cause a huge problem with my own family, because I might have made you dinner but not had dinner ready for my husband and the kids.
We take those closest to us for granted, don't we?
Yes. So I think I've gone on a journey that's, getting too involved from time to time is not a good thing.
And someone just needs to pull you back.
Yes, and actually I'm in a place at the moment where I'm learning to pull myself back, and just to say, human trafficking is a complex, gigantic, overwhelming, horrific crime and injustice in any country, to anyone, anywhere.
It is intertwined with every other social evil that you can think about. Prostitution, drug dealing, drug trafficking,
alcohol,
all sorts of criminality.
Domestic abuse.
Absolutely. We'll get to the heart of the matter in a little while. I'm just trying to understand what shapes a person like Marina. I guess you couldn't be this involved if you didn't have a loving and supportive family.
Absolutely. I think that my husband and my children support whatever I do in the community, and clearly I have an exceptionally supportive husband in that I don't have to work, so I don't have to earn a salary. Which is really, it's amazing, because who can say that? I know there are many people that do community work, and maybe they don't earn a salary, but most people, they're looking for a job.
And your children, they put up with all of this?
Yes. They actually are my little red flags when I'm getting too involved, when I'm spending too much time, too many hours, too much time on the computer doing research and reading. They rein me in from time to time, which is really wonderful.
When we talk human trafficking and all of the criminality involved with human trafficking, it's a huge dark hole. And you work very closely with this issue. Obviously, it has a huge impact, or it has to affect you in some way. How do you debrief, revitalize, pick up the pieces and move on again?
I'm also very privileged to have been able to choose which avenue in human trafficking, in the fight against human trafficking, I can work. I'm a very passionate and compassionate person, and I care a lot about individuals. Each individual is unique and different. And over the years, I've done a lot of counseling and mentoring. And I felt 4 years ago that was not the area I should work in. I would love to be a house mom with a house maybe with 6 victims of human trafficking who are now survivors, and working alongside them in all the needs that they have. But married with 2 children, that's not really ideal, especially if my family are not going to be with me. So I decided that I have skills and abilities with regards to admin, some basic accounting, bookkeeping skills, and I'm very organized, and I love people. So I love the networking, I love connecting people. You can phone me with just about any question, including or excluding human trafficking. I will always try and guide you in the right direction and give you suggestions or connections that you can make.
How do you recharge when you've had a particularly bad time trying to help a victim of human trafficking, or when you come across the statistics and the horror of exploitation of vulnerable women, children, and even men for that matter?
I tend to need to stop what I'm doing and just say no more emails for today, or take a day out and do something completely different. I recently traveled away for a weekend with my husband, and we were going down for a wedding and time with my family in Durban, and I just made the decision not to look at my emails, not to answer anything unless there's something critical, but there wasn't anything critical.
Okay,
and
so they ground
wonderful.
you. They
Yes.
ground you.
It was just, it was such an incredible weekend. And so if I just take time out, I love coloring in, so I also will just do something different, bake a cake. But I've learned over time that I'm not the sole person who's going to rescue anybody. I'm not indispensable.
You're not indispensable.
Like
you're not the only one that's going to
Yes.
make a difference, but you are making a difference in certain people's lives.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that. What's the difference that you make? How do you identify these people? And what is it that you do or say to make them feel better about themselves and make them feel safe, more importantly? I'm talking to Marina Reyneke. She is talking about her work with National Freedom Network. They obviously deal mainly with victims of human trafficking. I'm sure you can cast your mind back to about 6 weeks when we had Marcel in studio with us talking about this very same issue, and she's just told me now that he's been appointed the Chief Operations Officer, I think that's what it is, of the National Freedom Network, and he is equally passionate about human trafficking. Stay with us, we're going for our first ad break. Marina Reyneke is my guest. She's from the National Freedom Network, and they are an organization that connects with victims of human trafficking. She's here to tell us what exactly it is that they do and how you and I, as ordinary South Africans, can get involved and make a difference. So Marina, what exactly is it that you do at the foundation?
The National Freedom Network typically is national, so we work around the country. We're talking about the freedom of human beings not to be exploited. And then network is, our main focus is networking, is connecting people around the country with one another to collaborate, to work together so that we're not duplicating things. And my passion and heart is really to get everyone linked into the right people to do what they want to and what they are available to do. Everyone has a different interest. You might come to me and say, I have a heart for victims of human trafficking. How can I be connected to a safe house? And I'm going to say, a safe house is a place where we keep victims safe and protect them. So for now, we'd need to arrange for you to build a relationship with us. And if we see your heart is right, if we have given you a number of ideas of how you can get involved, it could develop that you end up speaking to or counseling or having time with a victim. But we don't advocate direct contact from the public into a safe house.
Oh, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Because these people are very vulnerable and their safety is at risk here. Who are these victims that we're talking about? I mean, at the start of the program, I said you and I are very regular people. Why should it involve or concern us? Who are we talking about here? Is it migrants into the country? Is it people coming from, you know, all parts of Africa and other parts of the world coming to South Africa? And we know it's not a problem that is endemic only to South Africa. Human trafficking is happening globally, but is it about bettering their circumstances and then falling victim to something as horrendous as traffickers?
I love that question because my answer is always anyone is vulnerable. So female, male, children, young, old, beautiful, not so beautiful. You can be poor or rich. There's no community that you won't find victims of human trafficking. And traffickers obviously do a lot of hard work researching and watching people, their movements, their family situations. I'd love to just share here a short film that we created in 2006 called Unthinkable. And it's a short film about Romeo pimping or lover boy recruitment. And it's based on a book, which is a true story, of a young man building a relationship with a young girl. And then he recruits her to be sex trafficked. And it's very sad to actually imagine that. So the importance of you and I knowing the red flags in our community is not key.
It's not, and we're going to take a look at that clip in a minute or two. So it's not necessarily, as I had suggested, people, migrants coming into South Africa for a better life from the poorest parts of Africa or other parts of the world.
It can be
You
that.
can be a victim being South African and perhaps just maybe going to look for a job, and you are promised a whole host of things and you relocate within South Africa, and when you get to the point of relocation find that you've been entrapped in some form or the other, and before you know it you are a victim of human trafficking.
Yes. You've been tricked, trapped, and then trafficked. And in between can be transported, but not necessarily, because it can be within a block of flats. So then there's no transportation, there's just moving from one flat to another.
The issue of drugging the victim, is that rife? Is it kind of almost standard practice?
I would say yes.
From all the research and all the work you
Yes.
guys have done?
Drug trafficking or the use of drugs. To
control the victim?
Yes. And then obviously abuse. Beating her, raping her until she feels like nothing. Then they've got absolute control. And then threats. So one of the key questions is, why doesn't she run away? And the answer is because her life is threatened. Her family's lives are threatened. It could be her boyfriend, her parents, her brother and sister, because they know everything about her. And then they threaten her with that.
Is it at all possible that you could spot, because you've been doing this work for a long time, that you walk in a mall or you walk in the street and you're able to spot just the look of that person and say to yourself, that is a victim?
Absolutely. If you've done any research, if you've read, if you just go on the internet to red flags of human trafficking, there'll be international links to articles or to just a page of information of red flags. And to give you an example, you walking in the shop and you see maybe an older man with a younger woman, and maybe of different races, and she could be just looking very forlorn. She might have some bruises. There can be many signs, and there can be just one sign. And the challenge is, do I take the risk and try and get involved? Because if you're in a shopping center, how can I just go up to the person or even try and communicate with the young girl? Because if she's controlled, she won't speak.
So they are in the clasps of the perpetrators. Who are those victims that decide they're going to try and break free? If they do that, who and where do they go to for refuge?
So most of the time, I would say, and I do say it boldly, that there are people that meet the victim. So we'll have a team of people that maybe do visits at brothels and in Mitchell's Plain on the street, and they build relationships with the ladies, and they also build a relationship with the perpetrators. We have situations in Pretoria and Cape Town where organizations, that's what they do. And when the lady's ready, then she chooses to come off the street or to come out of that situation. Or research has been done, investigations and observations have been done by police, and then they have a raid and rescue the girls. Often when they want to rescue the girl, she doesn't want to come with because of the threats that she's had. So immediately when a raid happens, the protocol would be that a safe house actually knows that there's a raid going to take place. So they're prepared for the possibility of victims coming into the shelter. If not, they will get a phone call to say, we have just rescued 7 victims of human trafficking. They've had an assessment and they need places of safety. Can you take 2? Can you take all 7? It just depends on what the situation is.
How long does the National Freedom Network and other organizations that are affiliated with you keep the victims on their premises, protect them, probably empower them, feed them, clothe them, house them, etc.? For how long do you keep the people at this shelter or the safe house? Because at some stage or at some point, you have to let them go because you need to make place for other people. You have to let them go when they're ready, independent, strong enough. And I know it differs from person to person, but let's just look at a very broad generalization. And because it costs a lot of money to run this operation. And I presume you're an NPO, obviously. So a whole host of questions which I've thrown at you.
Human trafficking is a very, very complex crime. And as you said, no situation is the same. So most of the safe houses are not only for human trafficking victims, because there's not always a victim of human trafficking that needs a shelter. We have a range of shelters for different situations. And typically, since the law was implemented in 2015, we don't actually have exclusive safe houses for victims of human trafficking. There are very few. And so the normal safe houses have rules and things that stipulates a victim can come in for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months.
What if they're not ready to move on?
Well, in the case
I'm just thinking,
in the case of human trafficking, you can't just push them on.
They're so broken, they're so afraid, they're so fearful.
There's such an incredible journey, and as I said, I could talk hours on the subject. there's such an incredible range of stages of the journey to healing and restoration and recovery and reintegration back into society. It can take years.
Oh.
Absolutely years.
All right, let's go for another ad break. When we come back, we'll talk some more on human trafficking. Not an easy conversation to be having, not easy at all, because you can't even begin to imagine that there are such cruel, heartless people out there exploiting other vulnerable people. We'll continue in a little while. Stay with us. Marina Reyneke is my guest. We're talking human trafficking, and of course it's not an easy discussion to be had, but it is happening all around us. Marina has just indicated that if you know people well enough, you'll be able to spot a victim on the streets, in the malls, wherever, but it's not as easy as we think to rescue the victims, because of course the perpetrators have a hold over the victims. Marina, what happens if you have a whole host of girls that are in the clutches of these traffickers and the girls fall pregnant and have babies? Let's assume they're sex workers, and in the process of their work they then, you know, all fall pregnant. What happens to those children?
Well, first of all, each person is valuable. So the pregnant woman is taken care of and nurtured until the birth of the child, and then...
By the traffickers?
You mean if she's not rescued?
Yes.
Okay, if she's not rescued, the traffickers can use the child as well once the child grows up.
To sell the child off,
yes.
Probably.
There's also things like organ trafficking, tissue trafficking. So the child can be
also
born.
very, very high demand for adoption, so they'd actually sell off.
Yes, illegal adoptions are also a part of trafficking. In the event that the woman gets pregnant, they could be forced to have an abortion. So, and it can be an abortion through very horrible means and abusive means. Mm-hmm. So they might not be taken to the hospital. It might be a backdoor abortion. And or they will allow the child to be born, and the mother will continue to take care of the child as well as being abused as a sex worker. The child can grow up and then also be exploited. That they can also arrange for the child to be removed from the mother and be given to the family.
We're talking mainly human trafficking in the line of sex workers. How else are people exploited? And let's assume something, you know, some exploitation's happening in my immediate vicinity. What is it that I should look out for? And then how do I go about alerting the authorities? I'm thinking domestic servitude. What does that look like?
Yes, that's quite interesting, because it is a topic in the newspaper at the moment, that domestic women are not paid correctly, and then also abused in that they have to work very long hours. In some cases their IDs or passports are taken away from them. And obviously if they're from another country, that is a problem if they want to return home. And also they're here to earn money to send home, and then possibly not even get to do that. Other forms will be, as I said, organ trafficking. A big issue which is being looked into and researched is labor trafficking. So you can have it, there's an organization in Cape Town looking into agriculture, And on the wine farms, are the laborers being paid correctly? Are they being treated well?
What are the challenges you see going forward? I mean, you're really vested in this type of work. Your heart and soul is in it. What sort of challenges are you seeing as far as this is concerned?
There's a range of challenges, because there's the avenue of prevention, which is the awareness raising. So what we're doing now is we're raising awareness. We're not rescuing a victim now. We're also not prosecuting or being involved in any prosecution. And we're not protecting anybody right now. We are raising awareness today.
And how do you do that? What is the message you're putting out there?
The information about human trafficking. What is human trafficking? Who's vulnerable? Where is it happening? What are the red flags? Keeping people informed. I have a resources website where you can watch video clips about human trafficking related to South Africa. The website is South Africa specific, so it has all the press releases uploaded from around the country. If I receive a notification, I read the article. Is it human trafficking or human trafficking related? Is it South Africa? And then I upload it. We also have recommended books to read, movies to watch, learning opportunities, online learning platforms, and then also promoting seminars and workshops that happen around the country. On our website, we also share that information, but many organizations, there's over 100 network partners that we work with, are working in schools, in the medical field, with lawyers, various government departments, your local police station, just teaching the basics about human trafficking.
Give us about 3 or 5 pointers that we should be looking out for. And I should imagine young girls and boys are very vulnerable, because they always, youngsters are looking for that next glamorous job, and they could very easily get sucked into becoming a victim of human trafficking. So what would the 3 main pointers be that you'd share with young people?
Don't be lured by a boyfriend that appears to love you and dote on you and give you all the gifts. Be aware. And it's scary, because my daughter's got a boyfriend, and he's not excluded from the list of potential abusers. Because people are very clever.
Mm-hmm. And I guess with a high unemployment rate in the country, young people are so desperate
Absolutely.
to get a good employment that they fall for all sorts of tricks, adverts, etc., promising glamorous jobs, high salaries, etc. How do they vet that is in fact a genuine job offer, and they're not getting lured into something dark and sinister?
If for one moment you think it's too good to be true,
then it is too good to be true.
Yes, because if it's a salary that's way above, if you don't need any qualifications, or you don't need any experience, to be real and honest, when you go for a job interview, which job interview doesn't ask for how many years experience do you have?
References, etc.
Or references, yes. And they're going to pay for your flight to Cape Town for the interview. They'll pay for the accommodation. And then when you get there, it is something totally different.
Is the modus operandi different to lure young men and grown men into this web as opposed to women and girls?
I'm sure for everybody it's different. It's dependent on the circumstances of the victim. The trafficker does his research. How best and how easy will we be able to lure that girl as opposed to another girl? So, yeah.
Okay, so in closing, your final thoughts and words of caution, warning, and advice to young people watching us this morning.
I'm passionate that you learn, that each individual takes the time to read up about human trafficking in South Africa, to understand what it's all about. Contact the National Freedom Network. You can Google the National Freedom Network. Depending on where your interests lie, if you want to know about labor trafficking, I've got information that I can share with you. If you want to know what you can do to make a difference, I've got a list of 10, I've just chosen 10 ideas for you to make a difference and get involved and be aware and make a difference and help somebody. And don't be shy to ask questions. I'm only an email away. I'm only a SMS or WhatsApp away.
Okay, and you spoke about victims of, labor traffickers. Is it perhaps an irrelevant question, I don't know, but is there any form that you find more serious than other types? Like, for example, human trafficking for the sex trade, or for body organs, body parts, or for selling off babies to the highest bidder for adoption. Parents looking for children, they can't have their own children. Is there any one that you feel is more heinous than the other, or would you say they're all equally bad? It's a violation of human rights, that's it?
Absolutely. It's a violation of human rights. If someone is abused, they're abused. If they're hurt in a minor way or a big way, it's a crime. It really is a crime. And we need to be raising awareness of it. In South Africa, there are many, many people, businesses, organizations, community groups that do not have a clue. Mm-hmm. They do not have a clue that it exists in South Africa, that it's happening to children. And I would say that the most common one that you and I would come across is sexual exploitation. And much more research is now being done on labor exploitation. And if you think of a rice plantation in India, the number of people required for the managing or the work of the rice plantation is a lot more than a brothel down the road. Mm. So there could be many more people involved in labor trafficking than sexual exploitation. But
on that very dark and which sounds to me like a helpless note, I have no doubt that you're doing everything together with the company that you're working for, National Freedom Network, and a whole host of other such networks around the country, that you will do everything possible to save, even if it's one life. But let's get real, let's be aware, let's educate ourselves, and let's know that this is happening possibly in our very own backyards. Marina Reyneke, thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. Difficult topic, hard topic, dark topic, but it needed to be aired. And that's where we leave it with Marina. Very uncomfortable discussion, but it is a reality right here in South Africa, so we need to open our eyes and start making a difference. Still to come, Soraya Patel to talk to us about consciously coaching and a whole host more. And from a very, very dark corner of human trafficking, we now move into the space of coaching. What is life coaching? What can it do for you? Who should be attending coaching sessions as opposed to perhaps counseling or therapy? We have the lovely Soraya Patel in studio with us, and she talks about a concept that is called consciously connecting. So let's find out what coaching is all about and how it can enhance you as a person. Soraya, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Julie.
Now, you are a life coach. Would that be the correct terminology?
So I wouldn't say life coaching because it's quite extensive. It goes into your career, into your relationship. So it's if we say life coaching, it just seems like it's your personal environment that you're looking at, but actually it's a holistic kind of approach to career, to your relationships, your family environments, your personal growth as well, etc. Yes.
Now, you come from a corporate background. Yes. You qualified with a BCom degree. You then went into the corporate world, worked there for very many years. And along the way, you decided to become an accredited conscious coach. How is this different to the normal coaching that we hear about? Okay. And I know you've talked about life coaching, how this is different.
Yeah.
And what made you decide that you wanted to change direction in life?
So consciousness coaching is really about creating an awareness within the person. Throughout the sessions, we teach people awareness about integrity and how that helps you be successful. We teach them things like compassion and how that can create a difference in your relationships with you. All about responsibility, because a lot of people blame their pasts and their circumstances for what it is that they experience now. So what it is it brings in a way of life. It's not just you go in and get coached, you achieve a goal and that's it. It's very sustainable. It also comes from within. So I'll always ask questions instead of giving people answers. Very different to counseling and psychology, etc. Because here the person comes up with the answers. We truly believe that the person has all the answers within them and they need to be asked powerful questions to get to where they need to be. And so my journey was very interesting. I've always known that I've never been meant for the corporate world, even though I spent 15 years in the corporate world. At a very early age, at about 27, I started my own interior design business. It was very small, worked with my dad because he had a construction company, and we just started very slowly because I knew that it was never meant to be there. However, due to life-changing events, I went back into the corporate, back at Discovery at the time, and I did very analytical work, which is very interesting because I'm very logical, and that space was definitely
And there seems to be a very artistic streak in you as well, because you talked about interior decorating.
Exactly. So I've always been like unsure that I've gone into a field knowing that I needed to. I was good at accounting and good at maths and those types of things. So I just went into that field thinking that's what it was meant to be. But the world has a way of showing you what you actually should end up doing. So I spent a lot of time as a business analyst in an analytical role, but throughout the journey, always had relationships with people. And that's how I was good at change management, because I got to understand what the people's problems were and solving for that instead of the mathematical problem, or for a better word, was. And when I got to a company called Hollard, their personal development program was amazing. So they undertook leadership courses and all kinds of different ways that you could find out more about yourself. So it was a full journey of self-awareness, and it was 3 years that I spent there, which is amazing. And the opportunity got me to the offer to do this consciousness coaching. And I think it's amazing that a corporate is willing to invest in becoming conscious.
Right.
Because people don't realize the benefits of it. It seems very fluffy. It seems very fluffy, but actually, when you get to the bottom and the nuts and bolts of each of these principles that we teach through the consciousness coaching, it actually has such a great impact, because all of our experiences are relationships. They're all human experiences, but we make it very complicated, and actually it just needs to be simplified to treat others well, be kind, show compassion, do what you said you were going to do, because that thing creates conflict if it doesn't get done. It's all of these types of relationship building exercises that enhances the environment.
And Soraya, all of us as human beings, that's what we all want, isn't it? We all want peace, harmony, a quiet life, happiness, contentment, and I'm going to come to happiness in a minute or two. We all want and aspire for the same things in life, and yet put together, we're all miserable and we make each other miserable.
Exactly.
Why is that?
Exactly. So what we don't realize is that within us, we have our own issues that we bring along in life, right? And everybody has it. We can say what we want to, but everybody has those kind of challenges, experiences in your past that you don't even realize has impacted how you behave as an adult now. And we don't realize that that impacts other people. So our impact on other people is so significant. And how I see this whole thing panning out is, as a person, you need to solve for your own. And you'll see there I say connect with yourself, because that's how I feel. We need to be able to understand ourselves, be aware of ourselves, be present. Because if we can be present, then we can start understanding how we react to certain things. Because it's just a reaction. That's all that it ends up being, is somebody does something and then we react to that. And then they get influenced by how we've behaved.
Rather than responding.
Exactly.
Take a minute, step back,
Yes.
assess the situation. But now I think we're all wanting to be smarter. And we need to get in our retort and make you know how I feel. That being said, as you speak, I'm wondering how long did this course take?
Yeah.
And if people are wanting, and this is an investment in yourself, is it not?
Exactly.
So how long did you invest in this course?
So it's an 8-month program. It was about 8 months, 8 to 10 month program, and it's quite intensive. So what they believe is that it's not just magically you do a course and you become a life coach. You actually go through an experience, and it's 2 days over the 8-month period that you attend.
2 days
classes,
per week?
2 days per month.
Right.
And you spend those 2 days with a group of people that you all experience all of this as you're going. But it's structured in such a way, I can't tell you that at a certain particular time, I felt like, is this a little bit magical? Because the types of topics that came was stuff that I needed at that time. It was almost like I needed to solve for something at a particular time, and it was structured in such a way that it unfolds. And you grow as an individual. At the end of it, you learn to forgive yourself. You learn to love yourself, and you learn to try and be better every day, to try to do good for others.
All right. We want the whole world to love us. That's the ego. You know, our egos, we want to be loved by everybody around us. Yeah. Yet we can't love ourselves. What is that barrier, and how do we start loving ourselves? What is it that we do? There's got to be a process that we go through to start loving ourselves. And only when you love yourself can you be quieter, calmer, and a kinder person.
Exactly. And the truth is, you can't be loved unless you love yourself, and you can't love others at the same time. So the key to it, and it's not a magical wand, right? But it's about being authentic. It's about being okay with who you are. What we do as individuals is we make up a lot of things because people expect us to behave in a certain way. When we come out of our mother's wombs, we cry, and it's okay when you're a baby, but later on they start telling you, stop crying. Don't do this, behave like that. That's not cool. We don't do this, we don't do that. And so we conditioned as we grow up to feel as though we have to live in a certain way. And we make up in our minds that that's how it is. We have to go back and try to be as authentic as possible. And I've started reading a book called The Presence Process. What it is it allows for you to breathe. And breathing allows you to be more centered and just allows you to be conscious. And as the process is a 10-week process that I'm going to undergo in the next 10 weeks, hopefully. And what it does is it makes you become more aware of what you're doing, because we do things subconsciously.
Oh,
our
absolutely.
subconscious minds do 90% of the work in our brains.
Too true. Okay, let's go for our first ad break. We'll be back talking some more about conscious coaching,
Consciousness coaching.
Consciously coaching.
Yeah.
Okay, we've heard about a whole host of coaching sessions over the years. Lots of us have talked about it on ITV networks, but this is it's the first time I hear about this concept, so we're going to unpack more about consciously coaching right here on the show. And of course, Soraya now is teaching this concept to other people. So you can call in, or we will give out her numbers if you're interested in undergoing this course with her. She's based in Northcliffe, Johannesburg. Stay with us. My guest this morning is the lovely Soraya Patel. She resides in Northcliffe, Johannesburg, and she's here to talk to us about consciousness coaching. That's the concept, obviously, and her business is called Consciously Connecting. So if you want to undergo this life-changing experience, then you need to look her up. She's on all the social media platforms, and she calls herself Consciously Connecting. Stay with us. We're going to unpack more of this throughout the interview. Now, Soraya, you know, as you were speaking about all of this, I'm thinking leadership training, I'm thinking cognitive behavioral therapy, I'm thinking all of that because it sounds very similar to that. After undergoing this type of changing, am I going to be a better leader? Am I going to have the skills to be a good leader?
Definitely. So part of what the concepts were in the corporate space and why I landed up here is due to leadership requirements. And definitely what it would teach you is to understand your people that you work with and understand that people tick in a certain way. So just being able to teach your own staff that integrity, as an example, is about saying what you said you were going to do by when you said you would do it by. That is exactly a concept that if you can live yourself, you'll be able to then get others to live it as well. And through, I mean, leadership is all about through showing a role model and living in a certain way, but it's also about understanding that people come from all walks of life and that they have their own experiences. And through this, we can unpack certain things that leaders sometimes struggle with. And there is coaching specifically for a leadership kind of goal that you want to achieve. And what I do is I'd spend time with people to understand what their individual requirements are. You can have group coaching in that sense, but it's always better to have individual sessions with, especially with leaders, because they have a specific thing that they need to solve for. Everyone has that little bit that they need to get to as a goal. So yeah.
How is this different to going to therapy? Because it's about finding yourself, isn't it?
It is.
It's connecting with yourself.
Yeah.
It's understanding and recognizing your problems and what you're going to do about it and how you're going to overcome them. So what's the difference?
So therapy would be that maybe there would be some advice being given, etc. And like I said, what we do is powerful questioning. We never give advice. There's no helping that happens in coaching. So it's coaching, not helping. I am not trying to solve your problems for you. You're solving it for yourself. And we go through an exercise of getting the person grounded in the session, and we go through an exercise of them defining what their goal is, and they come up with the answers throughout the session. And that's different because once somebody does it for themselves, it's sustainable. It's like if you tell someone what to do, it's very different to them coming up with it by themselves, and they're like aware of the fact that I came up with this answer, and they feel like they can run with it, and it becomes a lot more sustainable in that sense that you can now follow through with what you're doing. The coaching also has very specific goals, so it's not like you can say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you don't. Because it teaches you about integrity, you keep a check of your integrity throughout the sessions, and you set up goals within each of the sessions, and hopefully those become sustainable as well, that you follow through with them going forward in your life.
I'm thinking now I come on a course like this. Obviously, there's going to be changes in my behavior or my personality. I'm going to start interacting differently with my loved ones and possibly even in the workplace. Let's assume I'm a really autocratic manager. And I'm sent on this course because I need to change my behavior. Or I'm a miserable person to live with and I need to change my behavior. How are the people around me going to start responding to me with this change behavior? Are they going to be suspicious? Are they going to think it's too good to be true? And would they be able to trip me up so that I go back to my old habits and my old ways?
So I think because you're coming up with it by yourself, it's going to be very authentic. And I don't know what other people, but I can see right through people that are inauthentic, right? And you can go through this process and you could pretend throughout the session, but you're not going to get anything out of it. And that's why they always say someone that's going to be coached has to want to be coached. They have to want to go through the process. They have to opt into it and go through the experience. But like I said to you, it'll come across authentically and people will be surprised. They'll be positively surprised by it, because it's not going to be this thing that I'm feeling uncomfortable about the fact that Julie is different and she's behaving differently and she's speaking to me in a different way. I think there's genuine compassion and authenticity that's going to come through.
You've been behaving and responding in this way for 30, 40, 50 years of your life. And now to go on a course, a 10-week course, to change your behavior, to change the way you interact with people is 30, 40, 50 years of changing. And it sounds like a lot of hard work to me.
No, it definitely is. And so just to correct you, it's an 8-month process, right? Remember the full process is 8 months.
Now, if I come to you,
if you came to
if
me,
I come
it would
to
be
you
a
for
few
consciously
weeks.
connecting, I want to change things in my life. I want to be a better person. I want people to respond to me in a more loving way. I want people to take me seriously. Can you do all of that for me?
So I could definitely do that for you. And how you would find yourself going forward is you'd want to continuously change, because you never arrive. You're not going to go through the 10-week and say, I'm now fixed or I'm now magic. I'm not here to fix anyone. It's about a process and a journey, and you will want to continuously improve. And I say that because every day that I wake up, I want to change something. I want to be better in some way, form or another for the influence of everyone else.
Let me ask you this question then. You've said something pretty magical there, that every day you wake up, Soraya tells herself, I want to be a better person. I want to be 1% better than I was yesterday. What is the process we follow? Is it just the self-talk? Do you just tell yourself, Inshallah, after Fajr Salah, or whatever it is? Do you just tell yourself, Allah help me, I'm going to do the best I can? What is it you do?
So it's different for everyone, right? But your goals that you set up for yourself, what I do is I journal and I set goals for myself, and I see what worked and what didn't work today. So during the evening, I'd write down things that maybe I felt didn't work out for me, and you keep a track of it, or just even to have a reflection, a moment of reflection for yourself. You don't need to write it down if you don't want to, but you have a moment of reflection. You think what worked and what didn't work today, and that's where the awareness comes in, because if you're not aware, you won't be able to do that reflection. And what everyone decides to do is up to them, because I will never say to you, this is what you should do. But ultimately, I can guarantee you, while you go through the process, most people come up with very similar things. So they say, I want to meditate, I want to do some reflection, I want to journal, I want to pray more. It's different for different people, but it is about the intention. And if you want to do it, regardless, you'll get there. The Presence Process book that I spoke to you about, however, they teach you the breathing exercise, the different techniques, and that's something that if people contact me, I can put them in contact with the publishing house to get access to the book. And that kind of process is something a little bit more sustainable, like it's more concrete. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
What about goal setting with consciously connecting? So I come to you it's a 10-week session.
So there's 10 sessions, and preferably 2 weeks in between each session, so that you can actually have a change.
And how long is it? An hour, 2 hours? An hour long.
Yes.
Is this going to involve goal setting? And what if I don't meet my goals? Does that just put me back 10 steps, or can I just pick up from where I left off and move on?
So what we do is, at the beginning, we set up a few goals, and based on that, I'll say to you, you need these many sessions, etc. You can do the full 10 sessions, but it can be that you only require to solve for something, and that can take 4 sessions as an example. And what we do is we set it up at the beginning, but at every session, I'll take out those goals and I'll say, what is it that you'd like to work on today? Because it must feel right. It shouldn't be something that's forced. It must be that I chose this today. It's not Soraya telling you, okay, now number 2 is done, let's move on to number 3. It's something that you need to choose. And as we go through it, you tick off and say, no, I truly feel like we've achieved this. And at the end, there's a completion coaching. That session, we do a full completion and a follow through, so that you can carry on with your tasks or your goals or your things that you've set up for yourself.
Does this work in a troubled relationship? Now I'm thinking, here's Soraya sitting, she's been consciously connected, she sounds like she's got it all together. And looking at you, you know, there's just this air of peace and contentment around you. Alhamdulillah, may it always be so. But now I'm thinking, let's assume I undergo the course, or anybody for that matter, but let's assume it's a troubled relationship, whether it's trouble at work, trouble at home, troubled marriage, whatever have you. How does that change with only one partner undergoing consciously connectedness?
So I think what happens is, and I found that could be in your personal life, that what happens is you have to be the change. You can't wait for the next person and say, but you're not willing to do anything. And so regardless of whether that other person is going to change or not, they're definitely going to see a difference in you, and they're going to treat you slightly differently. They're going to they won't necessarily react as much as they used to, and you will see it in a relationship environment regardless of whether the other person is party, because you coming in and you've made the change for yourself, and they'll automatically see a difference and will have to treat you differently.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, I will not change the condition of a people if they don't start changing their conditions themselves. More about that, inshallah, after the ad break. Soraya Patel is here talking to us about consciously connecting, and whether it's a troubled marriage, trouble at work, whether you just want to be a better person, better at what you are, this is the course you need to think about going on. And even if you're one of those very rare and fortunate people who feel that you've arrived, you have no issues in your life, maybe, just maybe, this will take you to the next level in your life. Inshallah, stay with us. And welcome back. We're into the final segment of Consciously Connected, or Consciousness Coaching with Soraya Patel. And I'm absolutely loving chatting to her because she gives off this aura of such calmness and such peace. And I have no doubt in my mind that it probably comes from the coaching, or perhaps it's just her personality. But alhamdulillah, a very comforting space to be in with Soraya Patel. And if you're interested in calming yourself down, finding your peace, finding your tranquility, then perhaps you want to look up Soraya. She's based in Northcliffe, Johannesburg. You can find her on all social media platforms. She calls herself Consciously Connecting, and she will definitely engage with you in how you can join up on this program. She has also said to me off air that she is prepared to do one-on-one coaching over a 10-week period, or even a group of ladies who might be interested in attending. As Muslims, either, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're a professional woman, or whether you're just at home, and you believe that my life is okay, but I just want to get to the next level. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the Holy Quran, our 5 pillars, and we know that through that we can get all of the satisfaction and peace of mind that we want. But we humans, we err, we make mistakes. We need to work at being better than we are. And this is going to help us get there. So would you accommodate a group of Muslim sisters? And what Islamic aspect would you bring into the coaching just to take us to that next level?
So I definitely would accommodate a group of people, and the reason why is because I do feel that I want to make it accessible to people, and that's exactly what I'll be doing, is launching a group initiative where if a group of people are comfortable getting together, I can only do up to 5 at the moment, 5 people in a session, but if a group of ladies are willing to get together, we can all sit together and have a wonderful time, and it will be based on themes, right? So the themes I've been speaking about is compassion, is integrity, is things like taking responsibility.
So they don't necessarily have to come for 10 weeks. They can just come for a once-off session.
Exactly. And so the Islamic aspect, and this is what I checked throughout the session, because it was important for me while I was going through the training that I wasn't going against anything in my belief system. And I would come home and I would ask my husband, like, does this make sense? Is this okay? Some things were obvious, like they taught about gossip and how it causes, if it's not necessary to say something, like just don't say it. Is it going to be kind? Is it going to be useful information that you're saying? And it's a set of questions that helps guide you to decide whether I should even let this thing come out of my mouth, kind of thing. The other thing is that was very interesting for me is not judging others, because in our deen it says specifically, Allah judges, we do not judge. We are not
unfortunately,
judgments.
that's our biggest downfall, is it
Exactly.
not? We're all so ready to sit in judgment on other people,
Exactly.
just because they don't do things our way, just because they don't think the way we do.
Exactly. Because everyone's different, right? And so the key to the judgment thing, which was very profound for me, is that if you stop judging yourself, you'll stop judging others. And that's so true, because I found that I'm very hard on myself.
So it's all about loving yourself.
Exactly. Back to the self. So let's not judge ourselves and find the things that we do judge ourselves about, because if you're going to be beating yourself up about stuff, more than likely you're going to be beating other people. Well, not technically beating them up, but you're going to be judging others. So concepts like that, I used to come back and say, this makes lots of sense. Islam tells you don't gossip, tells you don't judge others, and forgiveness and all those types of brilliant concepts. So there's nothing specifically Islamic that I have come up with yet, but for me
that clashes with your belief system.
Exactly. And so for me the concepts align so well with our way of life. So it's just about getting ourselves into that rhythm of doing what we said we were going to do, like the Prophet used to do, where he would always be at a specific place at a specific time, and people could they knew that was where he was going to be at a certain time. So that's how we can live our lives if we would just implement these kinds of principles. I am looking to do lots of research around the Sunnah, so that I can understand how this all comes together, because I know...
And possibly incorporate it, inshallah.
Exactly, Ameen.
Soraya, let's talk about family groups.
Yes.
Let's assume this is a family of 4 mom, dad and 2 kids, or mom, dad and however many kids they have.
Yeah.
And maybe things are not going great in their lives, and they believe that perhaps this consciously connecting will work for them as a family. Would I be right in thinking that?
Definitely. We could bring them together.
Despite the different age groups?
Despite the different age groups. I think for very little kids, I would have to try to explain it quite nicely. But even my 7-year-old now, at the time she was 6, I would come home and say, this is what mommy learned today. I had these little cards that you could grab, and they basically tell you, say something nice to 5 people today, stuff like that. And because I could explain it in a simple way, she got it, and she could understand that, okay, this means I must be kind to people today, or I could try something different today instead of fighting with people or fighting with my brother about something or the other. So I definitely think that even the little ones and the families can see the concept and talk to each other about it, because it's about getting that conversation going around the coffee table or the dinner table, where people can talk about
what about people who have anger issues, for example? How do you work around them and this consciously connectiveness?
So it is a bit challenging, because like I said, the person has to want to change, and you have to get them to that point where they feel like this is something they want to do. You can't force someone, you can't sit someone at the table and force them to overcome their anger. You have to get them to a point where they realize that this is where it's at. But there are 2 aspects. So the coaching is one thing, but the learning and the awareness of those principles is another. And once you've heard something, you can't undo the fact that you've heard it, right? You can deny it all you want and tell yourself, I'm not angry and I'm not this and all those types of things. But the truth is, you can't undo something once you've heard it. And in the sessions, we teach those. They call them awareness creations, and we teach those awareness creations to everyone, so they get the concept of what compassion is and how good it is to listen to people without coming up with a question or saying something.
Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is upon us. We know that it's a month of mercy, forgiveness, emancipation. And the biggest thing that jumps out at me is forgiveness, because we as human beings just go through life trampling upon other people and hurting people all the time. Because again, it's our nafs, our ego, it's me, me, me. My needs need to be met, my needs need to be fulfilled. It's all about me. And then we just hurt people along the way. How do you bring forgiveness into your concept of consciously connecting? Because I should imagine this is a really big part of the coaching.
Yes. It does come a bit later in the process, because at the beginning it's about getting to understand where you're at, and you can't do anything until you know what's going on with you. Then you need to understand what are those things that you need to let go of, what are those things that you need to forgive yourself for, because like I said, we go through life thinking we're supposed to be perfect, and then we pretend like those things didn't happen or anything like that. And then you need to remember what it is that you want to forgive others for, because the moment you forgive them, you're letting go and you're allowing yourself to be. You're allowing yourself to be happier, and letting go of all of that issue that you just drag along with you. So it does come a lot later in the process, but it is something that teaches you a little bit of a concept of how, and it's statements. Sometimes it's about putting a statement out there, or writing a letter to the person, or writing a letter to yourself, forgiving yourself. And it's little tasks like that that I take people through to go through the process.
People who repeat the same mistakes over and over again, and the opposite party who keeps forgiving over and over again.
Yes.
How do we get past that?
So patterns are interesting, because once you learn your lesson on a pattern, you can then, it won't show up in your life. That's the truth. So it's about our tests that Allah puts us through, and it's about learning from the test, because once you stop it, you'll stop being faced with those things. So it's not about that other person. That person is the carrier of your lesson. And once you overcome that lesson and you learn from the pattern, you can then stop seeing that kind of thing surfacing in your life.
We've almost come to the end of the show. I could sit here talking for hours on end. It's absolutely fascinating. And like I say, you have this air of calmness, alhamdulillah. And it just has, made me feel so comfortable and relaxed. Would you say it comes from this coaching, or is it just part of your personality?
So it is. It does come from the coaching, but I have heard people in the coaching course say to me, you have the sense of calmness that comes through. And maybe it's just part of my personality as well, because I've had people say to me in the past, when I coach, I give people that comfort that they can be and say what they need to and be comfortable, because that's my gift. Shukr.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. In closing, why should people attend this course, and what's your message to them today on the show?
So I definitely feel that if people have some challenges, those are the keys. You're stuck in some sort of way. You just feel like you're not getting past it, or you want to achieve a goal. You have a teenager that's perhaps struggling with something. There could be many other reasons, relationships, etc., that you want to solve for. It's a necessity to come and do the course, to come to talk to me, even if it's just a few sessions, to get them going in a way. And my parting gift, I think, for me is people need to understand that their impact on others is humongous. And so we need to just try to be better every day, a little bit every day, so that we can have a better influence on the world and have them have a better experience in life.
And this is a process of healing, isn't it?
It
Whatever it is, or whatever you're hurting from.
Yes.
Consciously connecting is also about healing yourself, being a better person, being a better you, and moving on to a better tomorrow.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Amen.
Soraya Patel, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom with us. And I do hope and pray that the community rallies, comes out and starts healing themselves, and obviously start consciously connecting with themselves. That is Soraya Patel talking to us about the coaching course that she obviously is involved in. It's called Consciously Connecting. She is on all social media platforms, and she's locally based, Northcliffe, Johannesburg. So give it a tinkle, and this will definitely be the beginning of your new life, your new self, and alhamdulillah, new beginnings. And on new beginnings, we've come to the end of our show for today. Thank you for being with us. Do hope you've enjoyed it. And from the entire Let's Talk team, as always, take care on the roads, and it is Khuda Hafiz.
Ya hala, 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا.